What happens when you tell your husband that faithfulness is just a suggestion, and he responds with divorce papers instead of forgiveness? How far can you push a marriage before one little secret becomes the evidence that ends everything? I never expected to answer the door to a process server, but that's exactly how my open marriage became a legal battle overnight. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The kitchen counter felt cold against my palms as I watched Elliot load the dishwasher with his usual methodical precision. Every plate had its place, every glass positioned just so. It was the same routine we'd followed for 8 years of marriage, and frankly, I was suffocating. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cutting through the domestic silence. Elliot paused, a coffee mug halfway to the top rack. "About what?" "About us. About this." I gestured around our pristine kitchen, with its matching appliances and carefully coordinated color scheme. "About how we're living like roommates instead of a married couple." He set the mug down and turned to face me. At 35, Elliot still had the same earnest expression he'd worn when we first met at a software conference in Dallas. Back then, his quiet intensity had seemed mysterious. Now it just felt predictable. "I don't understand what you're getting at, Corey." I took a deep breath. This conversation had been building in my mind for months, ever since I'd started working with Jasper at the marketing firm. Jasper, with his easy laugh and flirtatious texts that made my phone light up at all hours. "I think we need to be more open about our relationship expectations." "Open how?" "Modern couples don't operate under the same rigid rules as our parents did. Fidelity doesn't have to be this black and white thing. It can be more of a guideline." Elliot's face went blank. "A guideline. Yes, look, we love each other. We have Tessa. We have this house, our life together. But that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge that sometimes people have needs that one person can't fulfill." The dishwasher door hung open between us like a barrier. Elliot's hands gripped the edge of the counter. "Are you saying you want to sleep with other people?" "I'm saying I want us to be honest about the fact that attraction doesn't end just because you sign a marriage certificate. If we're both mature adults, we should be able to discuss these things without getting all possessive and jealous." "Possessive and jealous?" His voice was flat. "Elliot, you're being deliberately obtuse. I'm trying to have an adult conversation about the reality of modern marriage. Most couples just lie to each other and sneak around. I'm suggesting we be better than that." From upstairs came the sound of Tessa's bedroom door closing. Our 10-year-old had probably been listening from the landing again. She had a habit of eavesdropping when our voices got tense. "So this is about honesty," Elliot said slowly. "Exactly. I'm being honest with you right now instead of just doing whatever I want behind your back." Something shifted in his expression. "Instead of just doing whatever you want behind my back." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "That's not what I meant." "Have you already done something, Corey?" The question hung in the air between us. My phone, sitting on the counter next to the coffee maker, buzzed with an incoming message. The screen lit up with Jasper's name and the preview of his text. "Miss last night. Can't stop thinking about..." Elliot's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to my face. "It's work," I said quickly, reaching for the phone, but Elliot had already seen enough. "Miss last night," he repeated quietly. "It's not what you think." "What do I think, Corey?" I could feel the conversation spiraling away from my control. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I'd planned to present this as a mature discussion between two adults who could acknowledge the complexities of long-term relationships. Instead, I felt like a teenager caught sneaking out. "You think the worst of everything. You always have. Maybe that's why we're having this conversation in the first place. Because I think the worst of everything. Because you're so rigid about everything. You can't even imagine that two people might love each other enough to give each other freedom. Elliot closed the dishwasher and pressed the start button. The machine hummed to life, filling the silence between us. Freedom, he said. Yes, the freedom to be honest about our needs instead of pretending we're the same people we were when we got married at 24. And your needs include Jasper from your office. It wasn't a question. I felt my carefully constructed argument crumbling. My needs include not feeling like I'm suffocating in a relationship that's become more about habit than passion. So you've been having an affair. I've been exploring what it means to be authentic in my relationships. Elliot stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked past me toward the stairs. Where are you going? To check on Tessa. We're not done talking about this. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. Actually, Corey, I think we are. The next morning, I arrived at the office with a mixture of defiance and relief. At least now everything was out in the open. Well, mostly everything. Jasper was already at his desk, his dark hair still damp from his morning shower. He looked up when I passed, his smile warm and conspiratorial. Coffee, he asked, standing up from his cubicle. Definitely. We walked to the break room together, and I could feel eyes following us. The office was an open-plan nightmare where privacy was impossible, and gossip traveled faster than email. How did it go last night? Jasper asked quietly, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. About as well as expected. He's processing. Jasper handed me my coffee, his fingers brushing mine. That's one way to put it. He'll come around. Elliot's always been slow to adapt to change, but he's reasonable. And if he's not? I took a sip of coffee, buying myself time to think. The truth was, I hadn't really considered what would happen if Elliot didn't come around. In my mind, this conversation was just the first step toward a more honest, more modern marriage. He will be, I said finally. Back at my desk, I threw myself into work with unusual focus. I had 3 campaigns to review and a client presentation to prepare, but I kept finding myself distracted by my phone. Elliot hadn't texted me once, which was unusual. Normally, he'd send me little updates throughout the day. What he was having for lunch, a funny meme, a photo of something Tessa had drawn. The silence felt ominous. At lunch, I called my sister Hannah. How's married life treating you? She asked cheerfully. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk about. Elliot and I had a conversation last night about opening up our relationship a bit. There was a pause. Opening up how? I explained my position, emphasizing the maturity and honesty aspects. Hannah listened without interrupting. So you told him you're having an affair, she said when I finished. I told him I want us to be more honest about the realities of long-term relationships. While you're having an affair. It's not an affair if you're being honest about it. Corey, honey, I think you might be overthinking this. Most happy couples have their little secrets. It doesn't mean you have to blow up your entire marriage to justify them. This wasn't the response I'd expected. Hannah had always been the more adventurous one, the one who'd dated 3 guys simultaneously in college and called it keeping her options open. I thought you'd understand. I understand that you're attracted to someone else. That's normal. But telling Elliot about it, that just seems cruel. Cruel? I'm trying to save our marriage by being honest. Are you sure that's what you're trying to save? After lunch, I found it hard to concentrate. Jasper stopped by my desk around 3 o'clock. Dinner tonight? He asked quietly. I glanced around the office. Sarah from accounting was definitely listening, and Mike from sales kept looking over. I should probably go home. Tessa has a school project due tomorrow. Tomorrow then? Maybe I'll text you. But even as I said it, I knew I would see him tonight. The thought of going home to Elliot's wounded silence and Tessa's worried questions felt unbearable. At 5:30, I texted Elliot, "Working late tonight, don't wait up." His response came immediately. Okay. Just okay. No questions about what project was keeping me late, No offer to save me dinner. Nothing. I met Jasper at his apartment at 7. It was a sleek one-bedroom in a complex near downtown, all modern furniture and clean lines. Everything Elliot would call impractical and expensive. "You seem tense," Jasper said, pouring wine. "It's just a lot to process, this whole situation." "Maybe you're overthinking it. You're attracted to me, I'm attracted to you. We're both adults. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that." "But it is more complicated. I have a family." "And I respect that. I'm not asking you to leave your husband. I'm just asking you to be present when you're here with me." He was right, of course. I was letting Elliot's reaction poison what should have been a simple expression of mutual attraction between two consenting adults. I stayed until almost midnight. When I got home, the house was dark except for the porch light. Elliot's car was in the driveway, but he'd apparently gone to bed without waiting up. I felt a stab of irritation. This was exactly the kind of passive-aggressive behavior that had driven me to seek connection elsewhere in the first place. The next morning, Elliot was already gone when I woke up. He'd left coffee in the pot and a note on the counter. "Taking Tessa to school. We'll pick her up too. Working late tonight." It was the first time in our entire marriage that Elliot had worked late without discussing it with me first. By Friday, the tension at home had become unbearable. Elliot was polite but distant, speaking to me only when necessary, and spending most of his time either at work or helping Tessa with homework. I felt like a stranger in my own house. When Hannah called to invite us to dinner at Romano's, an upscale Italian place downtown, I jumped at the chance. Maybe getting out of the house would help reset things between Elliot and me. "Double date night," I told Elliot when he got home from work. "Hannah and Graham want to meet us at Romano's at 7. "I'm not really in the mood for—" "We're going," I said firmly. "We can't hide in this house forever." Elliot looked like he wanted to argue, but Tessa was right there doing homework at the kitchen table. "Fine, but I'm driving myself." "Why would you drive yourself? We're going to the same place." "Because I might want to leave early." The restaurant was crowded and noisy, which suited my mood perfectly. I needed distraction, energy, life. Hannah had secured a corner table, and she and Graham were already working on a bottle of wine when we arrived. "There they are?" Hannah stood up to hug me, then Elliot. "You both look great." Graham shook Elliot's hand and pulled out my chair. "How's the software business, Elliot?" "Busy," Elliot said, sitting down across from me. "Busy but boring," I added with a laugh. Elliot spends his days staring at code that might as well be hieroglyphics. "It pays the bills," Elliot said quietly. "Barely," I said, then immediately regretted it. But the wine was already working, and I felt reckless. I keep telling him he should be more ambitious. There are guys half his age making twice his salary. Graham raised an eyebrow. "The tech market is pretty competitive." "Exactly. You have to be willing to take risks, put yourself out there. Some people are just more naturally entrepreneurial." "Like who?" Elliot asked. "Like Jasper at my office. He's only 29, but he's already talking to investors about starting his own firm." The name hung in the air like a challenge. Hannah looked confused, but Graham's expression had sharpened. "Jasper," Elliot repeated. "He's just a co-worker," I said quickly. "The point is, he's not afraid to dream big." "Unlike me." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." The waiter appeared to take our order, providing a brief respite from the tension, but I could feel Graham studying me, and Hannah kept glancing between Elliot and me with growing concern. "So how's Tessa doing in school?" Hannah asked when the waiter left. "She's struggling a bit," Elliot said. "I think she's picking up on stress at home." "What kind of stress?" Graham asked. I felt cornered. Just the usual marriage stuff, nothing dramatic. "Corey thinks our marriage needs to be more modern," Elliot said. "Modern how?" Hannah asked. I shot Elliot a warning look, but he was staring at his wine glass. "Just more honest, More open about the fact that people have different needs. Different needs, Graham repeated slowly. Most couples lie to each other constantly. Little white lies, big lies, lies of omission. I think we should be past that. So you're working on communication, Hannah said hopefully. Something like that, I said. Corey's been very communicative lately, Elliot said. Very honest about her needs. The way he said needs made it sound dirty, shameful. I felt my face flush. You're making it sound like something it's not. What is it then? I looked around the table. Hannah looked worried, Graham looked suspicious, and Elliot looked like a stranger. It's two adults trying to figure out how to stay connected after 8 years of marriage. By connecting with other people, Elliot said. Elliot, stop. Stop what? Being honest? I thought that's what we were doing now. Graham set down his wineglass. Are you two having problems? We're having growing pains, I said. Corey's growing, Elliot said. I'm apparently just staying the same boring, unambitious person I've always been. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? The tables around us had gone quiet. I could feel people staring. Can we please not do this here? Do what? Have an honest conversation? I thought that's what you wanted. I stood up abruptly. I need some air. I walked quickly toward the restroom, my face burning with embarrassment and anger. How dare Elliot humiliate me in front of my sister and brother-in-law? This was exactly the kind of immature, possessive behavior that had driven me away in the first place. In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and tried to calm down. When I returned to the table 5 minutes later, the mood had shifted completely. Hannah looked stricken, Graham looked angry, and Elliot was putting on his jacket. Where are you going? I asked. Home. We haven't even gotten our food yet. I'm not hungry. He pulled out his credit card and set it on the table. Dinner's on me. Elliot, wait. But he was already walking away, leaving me standing there with my sister and brother-in-law staring at me in shock. Corey, Hannah said quietly, what the hell is going on? I sat down heavily. He's being dramatic. Dramatic? You just basically told us you're cheating on him. I never said that. You didn't have to, Graham said coldly. It was pretty obvious. You don't understand the situation. I understand that my brother-in-law just walked out of a restaurant because his wife is apparently screwing around on him. Graham, Hannah warned. No, I'm sorry, but this is insane. Elliot's a good guy. He doesn't deserve this. I felt tears prick my eyes. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know he's never humiliated you in public. He just did. He defended himself. There's a difference. The waiter appeared with our entrees, looking confused by Elliot's empty chair. We'll need boxes, Hannah said quietly. All of it to go. The weekend was a disaster. Elliot barely spoke to me, spending most of Saturday at his mother's house with Tessa. When they came back Sunday evening, Tessa went straight to her room, and Elliot disappeared into his home office. I found him there around 9 o'clock, typing on his laptop. We need to talk about Friday night. Do we? You humiliated me in front of my family. He looked up from his screen. I humiliated you. Yes, you made our private business public. Our private business. Is that what we're calling it? I sat down in the chair across from his desk. Elliot, I'm trying to save our marriage. I know it doesn't look like that to you, but I am. By sleeping with someone else. By being honest about the fact that we've grown apart. By acknowledging that maybe we need to find new ways to connect. And you've decided that connecting with Jasper is the solution. I've decided that pretending everything is fine when it's not isn't working anymore. Elliot saved his document and closed the laptop. When did this start? When did what start? Please don't make this harder than it already is. I took a deep breath. A few weeks ago, it wasn't planned. It just happened. It just happened. We were working late on the Morrison campaign. We went for drinks afterward. One thing led to another. One thing led to another. Why do you keep repeating everything I say? Because I'm trying to understand how my wife of 8 years decided to start sleeping with a coworker and then convinced herself it was somehow good for our marriage. Because our marriage was dying, Elliot. We were like strangers living in the same house. At least now we're talking. We're talking because you forced my hand. What was the alternative? Keep sneaking around until I caught you? There was no sneaking. I told you what was happening. After it had already been happening, I felt frustration building in my chest. I'm trying to be mature about this. I'm trying to find a way for us to stay together while acknowledging that we both have needs that maybe one person can't fulfill. Both? What needs do I have that you can't fulfill? I don't know. Maybe you haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I haven't thought about it yet. Stop doing that. Doing what? Repeating everything I say like it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, Corey. You're having an affair and trying to convince me it's marriage counseling. Monday morning, I woke up to find Elliot already gone. He'd taken Tessa to school again, something that had apparently become his new routine. When I got to work, there was an email waiting from him. I'll be staying at my mother's for a few days. Need some space to think. We'll pick up Tessa after school and bring her home around 7. I stared at the email in disbelief. He was involving his mother now. Miriam had never liked me, had always thought Elliot could do better. This was exactly the kind of ammunition she'd been waiting for. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Elliot, this is ridiculous. We can work this out without involving your mother. Call me back. He didn't call back. At lunch, I drove to Miriam's house in River Oaks. Her Mercedes was in the driveway, along with Elliot's Honda. Miriam answered the door with a cold smile. Corisanda, I need to talk to Elliot. He's working. It's important. I'm sure it is. We stared at each other for a long moment. Miriam was 60, impeccably dressed, and had never worked a day in her life thanks to Elliot's father's insurance money. She'd always made it clear that she thought I was beneath her son. Is he here or not? He's here, but he asked not to be disturbed. By me specifically. By anyone who might upset him further. I'm his wife. Are you? Because from what I understand, you've been exploring other options. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. What happens between Elliot and me is none of your business. When my son shows up at my door with my granddaughter, looking like he hasn't slept in days, it becomes my business. He's being dramatic. Is he? Because it sounds to me like he's being remarkably reasonable under the circumstances. What circumstances? I was honest with him about something that most wives would just lie about. Most wives wouldn't have anything to lie about. The door opened wider, and Elliot appeared behind his mother. He looked tired, older somehow. It's okay, Mom. Miriam stepped aside reluctantly. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me. Elliot and I walked to the living room, a formal space with uncomfortable antique furniture and family photos going back generations. You can't stay here, I said. I can stay wherever I want. What about Tessa? What are we supposed to tell her? That Daddy's helping Grandma with some projects around the house. She's not stupid, Elliot. She knows something's wrong. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to blow up our family. I didn't blow up our family. I tried to save it. By having an affair. By being honest about the fact that we weren't connecting anymore. We weren't connecting, so you connected with someone else. Do you hear yourself? I sat down on the edge of an antique chair. What do you want me to do? I can't undo what happened. I want you to stop pretending this is about our marriage and admit it's about you wanting to sleep with someone else. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. From the kitchen came the sound of dishes clattering. Miriam was making her presence known. Your mother hates me. My mother thinks you're selfish. She's not wrong. Selfish? I'm trying to create space for both of us to be honest about our needs. What are my needs, Corey, since you seem to know so much about them? I don't know. You never tell me anything. Because you never ask. You just assume that because you're bored, I must be bored too. Aren't you? He was quiet for a long moment. I was happy, Corey. Maybe not excited every day, but happy. Content. I thought we were building something together. We were. We are. No. You were building something else. With someone else. I felt tears starting. I love you. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like it. I do. That's why I'm trying to fix this. You're not trying to fix anything. You're trying to justify what you've already done. From upstairs came the sound of a door closing. Tessa was here. I should go, I said. Yeah, you should. As I drove home, I tried calling Hannah. She answered on the third ring, but her voice was cool. How are you holding up? Elliot's staying at his mother's. I know. Graham talked to him this morning. Graham talked to him. Elliot called him. He wanted to apologize for Friday night. Apologize? For what? For making us uncomfortable. He should apologize. He embarrassed me. There was a long pause. Corey, honey, I think you need to take a step back and really look at what's happening here. What's happening is that everyone is taking Elliot's side without even trying to understand mine. Your side is that you're having an affair and expecting your husband to be okay with it. My side is that I'm being honest about the complexities of long-term relationships instead of just lying and sneaking around like most people do. Most people don't have affairs, Corey. Most people lie about having affairs. Do you hear yourself? I hung up. Tuesday evening, Elliot brought Tessa home but didn't stay. Wednesday, the same thing. By Thursday, I was furious. He was treating me like some kind of criminal, like I'd committed an unforgivable sin instead of just being honest about a complicated situation. Thursday night, I was going through his dresser, looking for the phone charger, when I found the letter. It was from Peterson, Myers and Associates, a law firm downtown. The return address was enough to make my blood run cold. I opened it with shaking hands. Dear Mr. Vane, thank you for scheduling a consultation regarding your matrimonial situation. As we discussed, Texas is a community property state, but adultery can affect both property division and child custody arrangements. I read the letter 3 times before it fully sank in. Elliot wasn't just staying at his mother's house to think. He was planning to divorce me. I called him immediately. You got a lawyer? I got a consultation. Without talking to me? What's to talk about, Corey? You made your choice. I made a choice to be honest with you. That doesn't mean I want a divorce. What do you want? I want us to work this out. How? How do we work this out? We go to counseling. We figure out how to rebuild trust. Trust? You're still seeing him, aren't you? I was quiet too long. Aren't you? It's complicated. No, it's not. It's a yes or no question. Yes, but nothing. You're still sleeping with him while asking me to work on our marriage. I'm trying to figure out what I want. You figured it out. You want him. I want both of you. The words were out before I could stop them. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Both of us. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Elliot, please. Can we just talk about this in person? I'll be there in an hour. He arrived exactly 60 minutes later, letting himself in with his key. I was waiting in the living room, having spent the hour rehearsing what I was going to say. Where's Tessa? At my mother's. She's spending the night. Good. We need to talk without her overhearing. Elliot sat down in his usual chair, but he looked like a stranger. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't been sleeping. I don't want a divorce, I said immediately. What do you want? I want us to find a way to make this work. This being your affair. This being our marriage. They're the same thing now, Corey. Your affair is part of our marriage whether I like it or not. It doesn't have to be. Are you going to stop seeing him? I hesitated. I think we should talk about what we both need before making ultimatums. That's not an ultimatum. It's a basic requirement for marriage. Says who? Says everyone. Says the law. Says common sense. The law. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in Texas. It affects property division. It affects custody. Custody? You'd try to take Tessa away from me. I'd try to protect her from this chaos. There's no chaos. There's just honesty. Honest, you've been lying to me for weeks. I told you the truth as soon as I was ready to. You told me the truth when you got caught. I didn't get caught. I chose to tell you. After I saw the text from him, I felt cornered, frustrated. Fine, yes, I was seeing Jasper before I told you about it, but I told you because I wanted us to work through it together. Work through it how? I don't know. Counseling, talking, finding a way to make space for both of us to get our needs met. Both of us. What needs do I have that aren't being met? I don't know. You never tell me. Because I don't have any. I was happy with our marriage the way it was. Were you? Really? Or were you just settling? I was happy, Corey. I loved our life. I loved our routine. I loved coming home to you and Tessa every night. But weren't you curious about other people, other possibilities? No. Never? Never. I don't believe that. I don't care what you believe. We stared at each other across the living room. 8 years of marriage, and I felt like I was looking at a complete stranger. So what happens now? Now you decide what you want more, your marriage or your affair. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. And if I choose our marriage, then you stop seeing him, tonight. You change jobs if you have to. You do whatever it takes to make sure it never happens again. And if I can't do that, then I file for divorce. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Elliot looked confused. Are you expecting someone? I wasn't. We both went to the front window and peered out. A man in a suit was standing on our porch, holding an envelope. Process server, Elliot said quietly. What? I recognize him from the law office. My stomach dropped. You already filed? No, I just had the papers drawn up. Without telling me? I wanted to be prepared. Elliot opened the door. The man checked his clipboard. Coruscant Devane? That's me, I said weakly. You've been served. He handed me the envelope and walked back to his car. I stood in the doorway, staring at the papers in my hand. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you made me do this. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Petition for divorce, irreconcilable differences, adultery, request for primary custody. Primary custody? I told you, I want to protect Tessa from this. From what? From having an honest conversation about adult relationships. From having a mother who thinks marriage vows are optional. I felt something break inside me. I'm not a bad mother. I never said you were, but you're not a good wife. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sank onto the couch, still holding the divorce papers. We can fix this. No, Corey, we can't, because you don't think anything needs to be fixed. The law office of Peterson, Myers and Associates occupied the 32nd floor of a downtown Houston high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the conference room where I sat with my hastily hired attorney felt like a fishbowl. Mrs. Vane, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation, my lawyer, Janet Morrison, said quietly. She was a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who specialized in family law and had come highly recommended by Hannah's friend. Your husband has documented evidence of adultery. In Texas, that significantly impacts both property division and custody arrangements. Across the table, Elliot sat with his attorney, Richard Peterson. The man was older, distinguished, and had the kind of quiet confidence that came from winning cases like this for 30 years. What kind of evidence? I asked. Peterson opened a file folder. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between Mrs. Vane and Mr. Lee over a 6-week period. Security footage from Mrs. Vane's office building showing her and Mr. Lee leaving together on multiple occasions after normal business hours. Credit card statements showing charges at hotels during times when Mrs. Vane told her husband she was working late. I felt sick. You've been spying on me. I've been documenting behavior that affects our marriage and our daughter's welfare, Elliot said quietly. Hotel charges. I looked at the credit card statement Peterson slid across the table. There it was, Marriott downtown, charged to my personal credit card on 3 different occasions in the past month. I can explain those. Please do, Peterson said. Jasper and we needed somewhere private to talk about the situation, about how to handle things professionally. You needed a hotel room to talk. The office isn't private, people gossip. According to the hotel records, you checked in at 6 p.m. and checked out at 11 p.m. on all 3 occasions. We ordered room service. We talked. It's not what it looks like. Janet touched my arm. Corey, stop talking. But I couldn't stop. This whole thing felt surreal, like I was being prosecuted for a crime instead of just trying to be honest about a complicated relationship situation. This is insane. I was trying to save my marriage by being honest about what was happening. Most wives would have just lied. Most wives wouldn't have been in hotel rooms with other men, Peterson said calmly. I was trying to figure out how to handle the situation responsibly. By continuing the affair. It wasn't an affair. It was a connection that I was trying to understand. Peterson pulled out another document. This is a sworn statement from Mr. Lee's neighbor, who observed Mrs. Vane leaving Mr. Lee's apartment at 11:47 p.m. on Tuesday, March 15th. The same night, Mrs. Vane told her husband she was working late on a client presentation. My face burned. You interviewed his neighbors? We interviewed people who could provide relevant testimony. Relevant to what? I never denied that I had feelings for Jasper. You denied the extent of the relationship. I was trying to protect everyone involved. By lying. By managing a complex situation. Elliot spoke for the first time in 20 minutes. Corey, just stop. I looked at him across the table. He looked exhausted, defeated. This wasn't the man I'd married, the quiet software analyst who'd been happy with our simple life. This was someone harder, more determined. I never wanted it to come to this, I said. Then you shouldn't have made the choices you made. I made choices to be honest about what I was feeling instead of just suffering in silence. You made choices to cheat on your husband and then try to gaslight him into thinking it was for his own good. The word gaslight hit me like a slap. I never gaslighted anyone. Peterson pulled out another document. Mrs. Vane, this is a transcript of text messages between you and your sister, Hannah Blythe, from March 20th. You wrote, and I quote, Elliot is being paranoid about Jasper. I think he's having some kind of midlife crisis. He's seeing problems that don't exist. I stared at the transcript. I'd forgotten about that conversation with Hannah. You told your sister your husband was paranoid and having a midlife crisis for suspecting an affair that you were actually having. I was trying to protect his privacy. You were trying to control the narrative. Janet leaned forward. Can we discuss settlement terms? Certainly, Peterson said. Mr. Vane is requesting primary custody of the minor child, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Vane pending completion of individual counseling. He's also requesting the marital home and 60% of community assets, citing Mrs. Vane's adultery as grounds for unequal distribution. Supervised visitation? I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. I'm not a danger to my daughter. You've demonstrated poor judgment and a pattern of deception that raises questions about your ability to provide a stable environment. This is insane. I had an emotional relationship with a coworker. I didn't rob a bank. You had a sexual relationship with a coworker while married and then attempted to manipulate your husband into accepting it. I was trying to save my marriage. By destroying it, I looked at Elliot again. Is this really what you want? To take Tessa away from me? I want to protect her from the chaos you've created. What chaos? She doesn't even know what's happening. She knows her mother has been lying to her father and spending nights away from home with another man. She doesn't know that. Peterson pulled out another document. This is Tessa's journal, which she left open on the kitchen table. Mr. Vane photographed the relevant page. She wrote, "Mom keeps getting texts that make her smile, but she hides the phone when Dad comes in. Dad looks sad all the time now. I think they're going to get divorced like Emma's parents did." I felt tears starting. "You photographed our daughter's journal?" "I documented evidence that she's being affected by your choices. She's 10 years old. She doesn't understand adult relationships. She understands that her mother is lying to her father. I wasn't lying. I was protecting them both from unnecessary drama while I figured things out. You were protecting yourself from consequences." The room was silent for a long moment. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the city spreading out below us, thousands of people living their normal lives while mine fell apart in this sterile conference room. "What if I stop seeing Jasper?" I asked quietly. "It's too late for that," Elliot said. "Why?" "If I end it completely, if I change jobs, if I do whatever you want, because I don't trust you anymore." The words hung in the air between us. 8 years of marriage, and it came down to that. "I never lied to you about anything important. You lied to me about everything. Where you were, who you were with, what you were doing, what you were thinking, what you were feeling, for weeks. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself." Peterson closed his file folder. "Mrs. Vane, I need to inform you that if this case goes to trial, we'll be calling witnesses. Your co-workers who observed the relationship developing, hotel staff who can testify about your visits, Mr. Lee himself, if necessary. Jasper wouldn't testify against me. Mr. Lee has already provided a sworn statement confirming the nature and duration of your relationship." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "He what?" "He was served with a subpoena last week. He confirmed that you and he had been involved in a sexual relationship for approximately 6 weeks, that you told him your marriage was essentially over, and that you discussed leaving your husband." "I never said my marriage was over." "According to Mr. Lee, you told him your husband was emotionally unavailable and that you were done pretending to be happy in a dead relationship." I was venting. People say things when they're frustrated. People also make choices based on those things they say. I looked at Janet. "Can they really take my daughter away from me?" Texas courts favor joint custody, but documented adultery, combined with evidence of deception and poor judgment, can definitely impact custody arrangements, especially if there's concern about the child's emotional welfare. "There's no concern about her emotional welfare. I'm a good mother." "Good mothers don't expose their children to marital chaos," Peterson said. "I didn't expose her to anything. I kept my personal business private." "You kept it secret, there's a difference." Elliot stood up. "I think we're done here." "Wait," I said desperately. "Elliot, please, we can fix this. I know we can." He looked at me for a long moment. "Corey, you still don't think you did anything wrong?" "I made mistakes. I handled things badly. But I was trying to save us." "You were trying to have your cake and eat it too. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "Fair would have been talking to me before you started sleeping with someone else. Fair would have been going to marriage counseling if you were unhappy. Fair would have been treating me like a partner instead of an obstacle to your happiness." "I'm sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. You're sorry I'm not just rolling over and accepting this, but you're not sorry you did it." He was right. Even sitting there, facing the loss of my daughter and my marriage, part of me still believed I'd done the right thing by being honest about my feelings, instead of just suffering in silence like so many other wives. "The papers will be filed tomorrow," Peterson said. "You have 30 days to respond." As I sat there in that conference room, watching my husband walk away from 8 years of marriage, I finally understood what I'd really lost. Not just Elliot, not just our life together, but the respect of everyone who mattered to me. Hannah barely spoke to me anymore. Graham had made it clear he thought I was selfish and destructive. Even Tessa looked at me differently now, like I was a stranger who happened to live in her house. I'd wanted honesty. I'd gotten it. But honesty, it turned out, came with a price I'd never expected to pay. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Elliot got primary custody, the house, and most of our assets. I got supervised visitation every other weekend, and the crushing realization that my attempt to create a more honest marriage had destroyed everything I'd actually cared about. Jasper had moved on to someone else within a week of giving his statement. Apparently, complicated married women weren't as appealing when they came with legal drama and custody battles. As I signed the final papers in that same conference room where it had all fallen apart, I realized that my pursuit of authenticity had cost me the only authentic relationship I'd ever had. Elliot had loved me completely, trusted me absolutely, and built his entire life around our partnership, and I'd thrown it all away because I'd confused excitement with happiness and honesty with selfishness. The last thing I saw as I left the building was Elliot in the parking garage, helping Tessa into his car. She was wearing the purple dress I'd bought her for school picture day, and she was smiling at something he'd said. They looked like a family, a complete family, without me. I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for, freedom from the constraints of traditional marriage. But freedom, I discovered, was just another word for having nothing left to lose.